Welcome to Between the Covers, the show for readers and writers and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, a publisher at Red Penguin Books, where we publish books of all types and genres. So whether you have a manuscript all ready to go, a book still in your head, or maybe even 300 sheets of loose leaf. And yes, probably once a month, I get a delivery to the office with handwritten sheets of loose leaf. Please visit us at redpenguinbooks.com and unleash your inner author. I'm so thrilled today to be joined by three authors who have thoroughly unleashed themselves. Mary Ellen Saladino is the author of The Love Letter Ghost. Experience the magic, feel the love. Wayne Turmel is the author of Johnny Lycan and the Anubis Disc. And our third guest today, Desiree Scott, is the author of Crescent, Vendetta from the Crescent series, Book 1.
Oh.
So our first guest, Mary Ellen Saladino, writes of The Love Letter Ghost. Born over a century ago in Gloucester, Massachusetts, Alexandra Sullivan knew hardship, having survived poverty, physical abuse, and the Spanish flu pandemic. Above all, he knew the power of love. In The Love Letter Ghost, Alex reaches through the ages to express that primal emotion, the only way his unearthly form is able, by channeling his spirit through a fountain pen he once owned in 1908. Now in the hands of a New York novelist, the enchanted pen becomes Mac's ally, enabling him to write heart-wrenching love letters to his fiancée, Angela Russo, after she breaks their engagement. Problem is, they're inexplicably written in flowing calligraphy and poetic language of the early 1900s by a ghost who insists on sticking his nebulous nose into Mac's love life. A ghost with a hidden agenda. To complicate matters further, Angie's Italian grandfather gets kicked out of his retirement home and moves in with the Russo family. The pasta hits the fan when Gramps hatches a scheme to reunite the couple, enlisting Angie's sister Marie and a neighbor's ornery pet, Tiny, a small dog with a big attitude that Gramps bribes into submission with enough pepperoni to give the Pope agita. Just as Mac's letters begin to work their magic, Angie's childhood nemesis, Bianca Lombardi, heiress to the Lombardi crime family fortune, pounces on their breakup as the opportunity she's been waiting for and makes a move on Mac. Gramps' plan would have worked if Angie didn't catch Bianca with her arms wrapped around Mac like a starving anaconda. Now it's up to Marie and Gramps to clean up the mess he's made while Mac and the meddling ghost write love letters to Angie. Please welcome author Mary Ellen Saladino. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, it's wonderful to be here.
Oh, so thrilled to have you. And, you know, we all need a little bit of a ghost to help us with some love letters once in a while, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Very Cyrano kind of a thing with the assistant.
Yeah.
You beat it because, you know, now Cyrano is the big thing and you came out with the book first.
We just saw that movie yesterday.
Did you? Okay.
We just saw them. And as you were reading that description, that's all I could think about. Because even for a crusty old cishet white guy like me, that is the most romantic story ever.
Oh, cool.
So this sounds cool.
It does. Now, Mary Ellen, you didn't see Cyrano yet?
Yeah, I've seen the trailers on TV, but I haven't seen the movie yet. I know what the story is, of course, but I haven't seen this version yet.
Well, now you're going to have to see it because it's the first thing
Bet.
that.
I have to now. It was right.
Well, if you were not inspired by Cyrano, tell us, what were you inspired by to write this story?
I was inspired by a pen, an ordinary pen, an old one that I had. And one day I just was looking at it and I said, gee, I wonder what the person's life was like who owned this pen. And then that was the takeoff point. From there, everything just started to happen, but little by little, the Penn story first, and then the breakup with Angie and Mac, and Gramps came much later. And, it took a while.
I love that it started that you probably saw an old pen lying on a desk, and
Yeah.
and poof, so many people say to me, I would love to write a book, but I have no ideas. And yet,
Ideas are everywhere.
So do I. So do I.
no problem getting ideas, Desiree, huh?
Right? They are everywhere. You just have to pay attention, and
I think that's the thing, is that people don't pay attention. I think
Mhm.
that people are not open to the ideas. So you saw this pen, and tell me something, because most fiction writers kind of divide themselves into those who planned out the whole story in advance to those who just kind of closed their eyes and started typing. What are you?
And that was pretty much me, the close my eyes and start typing, although the next book is going to be a little more planning involved. But this one, I just started, I did a very rough outline, and then I started writing. And as I wrote, I don't know, I guess because I read a lot through my life, and I kind of knew something else has to happen before this happens. And Angie needs an enemy, and then this has to happen. And then all of a sudden, one day, Gramps just popped up. I was thinking of my own grandfather, and I said, well, gee, yeah, I'll put Gramps in the story. And I started typing him, and then I says, well, gee, Angie needs like a sidekick. Well, then her sister was there, and just things just kind of happened. Most of it was not planned, but it all kind of fell into place over years of revisions, but it worked. It finally came together.
How many years from that first time seeing the pen until holding the book in your hand?
Well, there were 14 years
14
from the time I started.
You were like sitting there at the typewriter every day for 14 years.
Yeah, no, I was. The first 3 years I worked on it. It took 3 years for a first draft.
Okay.
Because I really didn't know what I was doing. I never really wanted to be a writer. It wasn't an aspiration for me. It wasn't a goal. I just got this idea and started. So it took me 3 years to really learn the craft of writing, or enough so I could come out, write a manuscript without being embarrassed. And then I was part of a writers group, and they all helped me because I was doing everything wrong. I mean, I was full of cliches. I was spelling things wrong. I mean, it was terrible, but it took 3 years to get that first readable first draft. And then I work on it here and there. And then my late husband's health declined. And once his care took priority for about 5 or 6 years, the book just sat there in my computer. I did nothing with it until I met my wonderful husband. Now we're married 2 years on Valentine's Day, and I started to read a couple of chapters to him because he really didn't even know I had written it. And then he encouraged me to start working on it again. And that's how it came to, I started looking for publishers. And
so it started actually almost in a whole different lifetime for you.
Yes, that's correct.
You were like a different person living a different life.
Yes, I never looked at it that way, but you're right.
Yeah, it was like a totally different person. And then you found it in a drawer, dusted it off a little bit. It's a good thing you still liked it because,
No, yeah, I kind of took a vacation from it in a way, because after a while you do get kind of tired of it. You got to keep reading it over and over and over. But it was good because then after all that time, I read it again with a fresh pair of eyes. And it was like, everything's just kind of, whatever was maybe wrong with it, I saw now. Before I just kind of brushed over it. So it was good. It was good to have that kind of a break from it.
I love this from the perspective of two major, I'll call them tips here. One is that ideas are literally everywhere. They are sitting on your desk. They are rolling around in your drawers. They are every place, and you just have to be open to them, and you will see ideas every place. But the other is that sometimes taking a break is a good idea.
Yeah, that helped. That really did help. Because it's funny, because I was reading it and I said, wow, this is pretty good. I wrote this.
I would dare say that book number 2 is not going to take 14 years.
Oh, no, I have plans already, I've started an outline and in fact, the book is all here right now. The
Okay.
whole book is in my head. I just have to write it, of course, but it's going to be a continuation of the first. It's the same, most of the same characters, some other ones I'll bring forward, that were maybe secondary characters will play a bigger role in the second book.
Right,
But
right.
I'm ready.
I'm just curious with our other authors. Book number 1, was it, really, really long? And then does it get better if we have more than one book? Desiree, how about you? Was book number 1 like pulling teeth?
No, not necessarily. Mine took about 2 to 3 years to write. But I write mine off of, I cannot write it without an outline. So mine's very detailed from front to start of an outline. And then the second one took about as long. Now the third one's actually taking, we're going on probably 4 years on the third one.
Okay.
Because
So
it's
the opposite, yeah.
yes,
It's less than 14. You're doing all right.
During that
Yeah,
total was 14.
Yeah.
it's taken me a while.
I get that. It's not easy. Wayne, how about you? How long did that book take?
My first novel, which is different than my first book, my first novel, Count of the Sahara, took a little over a year, but I had already written 8 nonfiction books by then.
Oh, okay.
And so I kind of had it down to a system. And I can actually, given what a complete car wreck my life is, I actually have some discipline that I can apply. What's funny is Johnny Lycan took almost 2 years to write, which is the longest of any of my novels. But it turns out that a global pandemic and, the near collapse of the Republic, and it turns out existential dread is not good for the creative juices.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So this one took me a while, but the sequel, which is out in December, took me a whole lot less, and I'm already on book 3 in the series. So hopefully I am back in the groove.
Well, that's good. Those are some hopeful words for Mary Ellen, who is actively working on book 2. We want to know that it's going to
So is mine. Wayne, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
I'm very curious. What's your writing process like? Because mine's all over the place. And I could definitely use some advice on that structure you're talking about.
I am the worst human to ask that. I have a process. This will serve you no good whatsoever, but I'm happy to share with you. If you can do anything like this, knock yourself out. Because I have a day job that requires me to write all the time and whatever, my personal time is late afternoon or weekends. So what I've learned to do is I spend all week noodling in 3-chapter blocks, making notes and mapping it out. Like I start with an overall plan, kind of, I need to go from here to here, but then I break it up into 3-chapter blocks, and I'll noodle that chapter all week sitting out on the deck, making notes to myself. And then Saturday and Sunday, I just park my butt in the chair and, unscrew my head and throw it all onto the page. And I can crank out a fair number of words in a short period of time because it's been marinating all week.
That's amazing.
Ooh, well,
I used to I used to give myself 2 hours a day, and I'd sit and write. That was how I got through my first draft. Didn't always work out, but I tried. At least 2 hours a day I would write.
Well, that's what I do with the weekends is I say, I'm going to sit and I'm going to do this. What I found, though, is I started doing this in high school. I had a job in a kitchen at a restaurant when I was in high school, and I would do my homework in my head while I was washing pots. And so by the time I got home, it was just kind of transcribing because it was already written.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still the way I do it. I don't do a lot of it's not like I read these people and I'm typing and my characters get away from me and I'm like, what? Because by the time I sit down to type, I already know where it's going for that
I like
chapter
that you
or
give it
whatever.
time to ruminate, and that's almost like Mary Ellen when she had that break of a couple of years in there. You know, isn't there a line? We will serve no wine before it's time.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, some things you can't rush. And Wayne, it sounds to me like you let it sit there, so you're thinking about it all week long, and when you
Yeah, but it's cheap wine because it's not like it sits for years.
we don't want years, we want more books.
Yeah.
Sure, we definitely want more books, which is so awesome. So for our viewers, they better hurry up and grab a copy of The Love Letter Ghost by Mary Ellen Saladino quick, because there is a sequel coming and it will be less than 14 years. That's for
I
sure.
promise.
Wayne Turmel, as we heard, wrote Johnny Lycan and the Anubis disc. And he writes that Johnny is riding high. He's got a PI license, a concealed carry permit, his first big payday, and a monster of a secret. After rescuing a bookie's daughter from Russian mobsters, the newbie PI catches the attention of a rich, mysterious client. At first, it's easy money. After all, magic isn't real, and those occult objects have to be fakes. But while chasing an ancient relic, an obsessed enemy from his past emerges. Johnny learns that the world is much stranger and more dangerous than he ever suspected. Malignant forces dwell in Egyptian artifacts. Romani superstition is fact. And being a werewolf may be the most normal thing he has to face on this case. Please welcome back Wayne Turmel. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. That
Oh.
sounds pretty good when you put it that way. I was like, dang, I'd read that.
Absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit about what inspired this book. How did you get this idea?
Well, there's a couple of things. At its basic level, years ago, I read a book called The Wolf's Hour by Robert McCammon. And I was young, maybe out of high school, maybe. And it was cool. Like, not only was this guy a secret agent, not only he was a Russian secret agent, he was a Russian secret fighting Nazis, and he was a werewolf. That is so cool. And werewolves have always been my favorite kind of monster trope. I saw Oliver Reed in Curse of the Werewolf when I was like 13, babysitting my cousin, and you know, every 13-year-old boy has a psychotic rage monster trying to get out of them. And so that kind of resonated. But then, you know, I'm a grown up, and my first 3 novels were actually historical fiction. They weren't urban fantasy at all. But I just got this idea. We're talking earlier about there were stories everywhere. And my big game is what if? Right? Just as what if this pen belonged to somebody, right? What if I was a perfectly normal guy living in Chicago, you know, blue collar, whatever guy, except I've got this secret. Right? And so the idea of being kind of a Spencer for hire, Jack Reacher, blue collar detective kind of thing, you know, private investigator with these powers that he's desperately trying to keep hidden sounded like a cool story.
Yeah, it certainly
And
does.
then, you know, it's this weird mix of adventure story and horror, and there's laughs and like that. So it's a fun story.
Fantastic. You were saying that you write for work. What do you do?
Yeah. I am professionally in the right place at the right time, because for the last 15 years, I've been writing and speaking and training about remote work and
Oh.
remote communication and how to do Zoom and WebEx meetings and those kinds. And I've written like 8 books on the subject. And then, you know, after years of banging on the door, all of a sudden we were in the right place at the right time. So our company is the Remote Leadership Institute. We've got 2 books that are semi bestsellers, Long Distance Leader and Long Distance Teammate. And, you know, that's what I do. But right now it's keeping me really busy and stopping me from doing fun writing.
Sometimes that pesky job gets in the way, doesn't it?
You know, somebody asked me once if I won $1 million, what would I do? And I said I'd keep writing novels until the money was gone.
I think that's all writers' dream is. Be nice.
But you are too busy now. Well, I assume your job is a remote job.
Yeah, I work at the same place that I write, which is also part of the problem. Is after a full day, you know, the last thing I want to do is put my butt in the same chair, pounding on the same keyboard that I've just been pounding on for 8 hours.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. You know, some people during this lockdown have been super creative and they've had all this time on their hands because they're not commuting 2 hours every, and others are feeling like you, like, I've been sitting in this desk all day long. I don't want to be doing it anymore. Yeah. So as the expert on remote work, Wayne, how do we, you know, get around that so that we can balance? Because I presume a lot of us are going to continue working remotely.
Well, for me, it's, you know, living in Vegas is helpful because when I'm doing that noodling, right, that outlining the chapters and trying to figure out where the beats are and coming up with cool lines that I can bury in there, I do it out on the deck watching the hummingbirds, having a cigar, you know, just chilling. Which, having just moved here from Chicago and having grown up in Canada, I fully understand how lucky I am, and I try not to rub it in.
Well, what brought you to Vegas in the first place?
My bride informed me that after 18 years in Chicago, if I wanted to keep living with her, it would be somewhere warmer than Chicago.
Just about every place.
Well, I wanted to keep living with her, so here we are.
Mm-hmm.
But why Vegas? Why not Florida? Mary Ellen's in Florida. Why Vegas?
Oh, no. Me and Florida don't get along. I am far too Canadian. Truthfully, I love the desert. I don't like humidity. I don't like bugs.
It was climate-based for you.
It was totally climate-based. Plus, Vegas is great. If you can spend any time in Las Vegas and not come up with a story idea, you're in the wrong business. There are stories just walking the streets in this town. That's actually why the second Johnny Lycan novel, Johnny actually has to go to Vegas. And there's this whole, like, not only is he an American werewolf in Vegas, but he's this Midwestern guy who suddenly finds himself in Las Vegas. And, you know, people either love this town or they hate it. There's no middle ground. Yeah, I know plenty of people that moved to Vegas about the same time we did who've already fled screaming because this place is just too weird and they just can't handle it. Whereas I love it. It's just every day there's a story if you keep your eyes open. And you know, it's fun and
you're okay.
You know, it's funny. I don't gamble. We don't go to the Strip very often, but it's warm and sunny, and there are crazy people everywhere, and that's my tribe. So the writing scene here is unbelievable. There are so many writers groups and so many creative people.
Who knew so many writers liked 120 degrees?
Well, first of all, they're nocturnal. But the other thing is they're all getting, you know, they're leaving California and New York and Chicago and all these places where rent's too expensive and the weather sucks and, you know, we're out of here. And so right now, Vegas is really experiencing a boom of broke creative types.
Wow, who knew? Well, I see somebody waving her hand up there. who wants to be a broke creative type in Vegas. That's what I'm seeing.
Our tribe has room, Desiree.
I love the heat. I've lived in Missouri my whole life, and believe me, the winters are not fun.
We
In New
have,
York either.
we will hook you up, Desiree. Come join us.
They've got a seat at the Writers Club. They are ready for you. And you and Wayne have something serious in common because, you know, he writes about werewolves, and here we are with Crescent Vendetta. And there's that wolf. I was telling Desiree earlier that we were kind of laughing to wonder if Wayne's wolf and Desiree's wolf were the same wolf and how that would pan out. But here's what Desiree writes about Crescent Vendetta. Wolf shifter Vanessa Burns has survived a life of brutality and neglect. Being kidnapped, drugged, and forced into an underground fighting rite is just the beginnings of one man's sick and twisted obsession. Travis Cameron, the alpha of the Crescent Ice Pack, suffering a similar fate, wakes up to find that his life is about to be irreparably changed by the fierce she-wolf in the next cage. Can they put aside old rivalries and the past and work together not only to survive and escape, but to weather the storm of complications, revenge, and betrayals waiting for them on the outside? Please welcome author Desiree Scott.
Yay!
Thank you so much for
Sounds
joining
good.
us. So tell me a little bit about what inspired this book. I mean, did you see a wolf in the backyard?
No, it was actually it's funny because all I remember is a dream. And the last somebody interviewed me not too long ago, and she was hesitant to ask me, she didn't know how to ask me if my personal experience had motivated me to write the story just because of how dark it was. And I told her, well, I've led a very sheltered life. Nothing, I was not even allowed to have sleepovers or anything until I was, 18. When I say sheltered, my dad's a preacher. So,
Dad
yes.
doesn't know you're here.
Very, very sheltered.
Oh, wait. I do have to ask you, does Dad know about the book?
Yes, he's never read it.
We're trying to prevent that.
Well, I warned him that I don't think he wants to read any of my books just because how dark they are. So this started off as a dream, and I've always been a animal rights advocate in a way, just because, the cages, the dog fighting, and I really don't have, I just remember dreaming one day and then waking up and be like, what if I started a story of, I've always loved paranormal. I've always loved shapeshifters. So that's kind of where that inspired it. But I did want to tell a mini story. It's actually on my website. And how I became a writer, honestly, has a lot to do. So I was 18, and I was 18, and I hand wrote 10 authors. And I didn't expect much in return, but I sent them gushing. Andrea Kane, Nora Roberts, Lisa Jackson. I'm talking the big name ones. One author wrote me back. Andrea Kane will always stick with me. She was an 18-year-old girl, hand wrote a letter back to her and told me to follow my dream and never give up. She gave me a whole bunch of advice, tips, said that, she was grateful I wrote. And that's the kind of author that I want to be. I want to be that if somebody reaches out to me, that I don't turn another cheek and be like, okay, whatever. I want to be that inspiration to others. And that will always stick with me.
It's funny. You were talking about authors groups, Stephanie, and Mary Ellen, you got in an author group. There's this notion that writing is a lonely thing. And I try to explain to people that writing is social, typing is lonely.
Mm.
When you're actually putting the words on the page,
You're alone.
that's just you, right?
Right.
But writing, there's so much support and so much energy. And
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
You need all that feedback. You need all those critiques. You need that.
Yes.
Yes, it's exactly.
But also the being nice to the 18-year-old. What does it hurt to be nice to the 18-year-old kid who
Yeah.
writes you a letter?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. And like I said, I wrote 10 well-known authors, and Andrea Kane was the only one that wrote me back.
Mhm.
And here you are, and those others, they missed it. They missed it. But you're absolutely right, Wayne. One great thing I think that has come out of COVID, and Wayne, you are an expert about remote and online and Zooming. But anyone who previously did not live near a writers group, well, they are just go to Facebook. There's about 5 million writers groups there to find. There's writers groups everywhere. I know writers that I work with who have sprint groups in the morning, and they all log in and they write their 5,000 words with a little person making sure they're going along, and they have critique groups like you said, Mary Ellen. There's all sorts of writers groups, and you don't even have to leave the house.
Nope. And COVID made it to where, honestly, when COVID hit, it made it to where I actually have the dream of being able to work from home and be able to write, be my own boss. And I will give COVID the credit where that's due.
Yeah.
It's made society realize that there is advantages to having remote workers.
Absolutely. I mean, where I live, I'm up here in New York City. It is completely normal for a person to have an hour and a half plus commute each direction.
Sure.
Mine was an hour.
That's just insane. And how much time everyone got back in their day when they didn't have to do that, and
Well, there's a 3-beer conversation about whether or not they did, because the number one answer when you ask people, what are you doing with that commute time, is working.
That is true.
A lot of people have not figured out how to disconnect and not get sucked into the vortex, but that's another conversation for another time.
I did read that statistic, but fortunately for the others who have gotten with the program, spending time with family and pursuits like writing. I mean, certainly we run a publishing house that before the pandemic, we were publishing 2 books a month, and now we publish at least 2 books a week.
Wow.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
People are absolutely writing. So some of them, Wayne, are still working, and we're here to tell you to stop.
That's right.
Don't give your boss more time. Don't just usurp that commute time and turn it into work time. No. Do what Desiree does and make it writing time, make it me time, make it about what you want to be doing. And that's just so awesome that you've done that and taken it that way. So, you've got this werewolf and you've got this preacher father. Wow. I'm still trying to figure out how those 2 things rectified.
It's very
I'll take
hard.
her preacher father and add my Baptist Sunday school teacher mother, and we're all in the same boat. So
And my overprotective Italian father.
see,
It's interesting that all 3 of you have, an element of, the paranormal, the surreal, the magical. Something is not, it's not all what we see going on here. Does it all come from repressed childhood somewhere? I don't know.
I don't know.
No,
Hard to
mine's an
say.
overprotective.
Overprotective, and we're just not like. Do you have any brothers and sisters, Desiree?
I have a brother and a sister.
Okay. Did they read the books?
No, I don't. I have more support online and from my husband than I do from my actual family.
Okay.
They love the fact that I'm a writer. They do support me, great job, Desi, and my dad gets the first copy of every book, the proof. He's got a shelf wall of those because I've published 7 books, but has he ever read them? No.
And we're just keep it that way. Well,
yeah.
I am delighted to hear your husband is supportive. Many
Oh,
times
yeah.
I'm doing this show, and I can't tell you, at least half the time my guest says, yeah, my husband, my wife's never read a thing I've written.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
My
Mary
husband
Ellen,
supports me.
your book, Mary Ellen, came out of the fact that your then new husband.
yes, my wonderful husband Carmine, he said, you've got to publish this. He said, work on it, and I'll help you out in every way I can. So I took advantage of that.
Oh wow!
There
And
you
we're
go.
both, and
So
we're
I
both
guess he has
retired.
written it. He has read it then.
Well, I've read him certain scenes that I thought he would enjoy, and he liked everything. And now that I just got my actual books, I ordered a bunch of books. I gave him his own copy, and now he's reading it himself from beginning to end.
Wow, wow. That's
Yeah, the Duchess reads nothing of mine until the first draft is completely done.
Uh-huh.
And then she gets the binder, the printed out first draft. Then she gets to look at it.
I
Yeah.
get that. You don't want to, not until you've gotten your ducks in a row there, huh?
Yeah, it means a lot.
Wayne, I love that, the Duchess. You saw me laugh.
I married up.
Well, I am glad to hear that you married up. We should all marry up. That's for sure. So, Desiree, 7 books. Mary Ellen, this is your first, but there's another in the works. Wayne, how many books? Counting all those nonfictions.
Oh Lord, I think I'm at 14 with 15 being Johnny Lycan 2, which comes out in December, and then the sequel to our long distance books comes out in January of next year. So it'll be like 16 by this time next year.
Good for you.
You've got things in process. Mary Ellen, you have things in process. How about you, Desiree? You're in the middle of anything?
Yes, I'm in the middle of 2. I'm in the middle of the 3rd one for the Crescent Vendetta because number 2 is already out.
Okay.
And then I'm in the middle of my 2nd for my romantic suspense series.
Oh, okay. How do you manage working 2 things at once? Do you ever get confused and have this guy?
No, there are 2 different genres.
Okay.
So it's kind of hard to confuse it. But now, see, I have multiple books in the same genre that's at various stages.
Oh.
So I work on one of those. Like I'm probably in like 4 or 5 total that I've been working on here and there.
Right.
But it comes and goes.
Goes. Okay. Well, I'm delighted to hear all of you have some pots in the fire. So my first question, they say 90% of the population wants to write a book, and you wrote a book. So what are you going to say to the 90%? Because literally every place I go, if I go to the grocery store, people stop me and say they want to write a book, but writer's block, but I have no ideas. I have no time.
Excuses.
I can't get started.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? What are you going to tell them, Desiree? Excuses? What do they do? How do they stop?
I'm
It's
sorry.
really hard because I used to be that person too. And so you just have to sit down and discipline yourself.
Yeah, that's it. There was a woman in my writers group who said, I'm just afraid to write and it's not going to be good. How could I become good? And I said to her, I'm not trying to be a wise guy or anything, but you got to write.
Yep.
You just have to write. It's practice, and it's not going to come out perfect, and you just have to do it.
I think you're right that people are afraid that it's not going to be good. But of course it's not going to be good. I mean, the first time you do anything, it's not going to be good.
My first draft, I gave it to the leaders of my writers group, and they started to read it, and they said, Mary, and they gave it back to me. They said, you got to fix this. It was, you got to fix this. It was that bad because I didn't know what I was doing. But once I learned a little bit more about writing, everything got better, of course. But in the beginning, I was terrible. But I had the idea, and I just didn't give up on it.
Wayne, how about you? What's your tip to our new writers out there?
When you get feedback, the hardest thing is figuring out what feedback to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it, because some people, they get some negative feedback and they completely crumble, right? And they go,
Yes.
oh no, So I look at like there are 3 buckets. There's a really tiny bucket that is pure gold. Like somebody gives you something that is like, holy cow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. It's a really tiny bucket, right? And then there's a second bucket, which is, I need to think about that.
Okay.
And it might be good feedback. It might just raise a question though that sets you thinking about something else, but you need to think about it. And then the third bucket is, thank you very much for your feedback. You're an idiot. And it's the biggest bucket, right? But you have to learn to process it so you know which bucket it goes in.
Mhm.
Yes.
Good
And
advice.
process it without letting, you gotta have a bit of a thick skin too, don't you? So that it doesn't make you stop writing.
Mhm.
Well, that's the thing is a lot of people, and I started life straight out of high school as a professional performer. So I've been getting reviews and having people tell me I suck basically my whole life. So I've got a really thick skin, but I know how to listen to it and go, ooh, what in there is relevant and what in there can I just blithely ignore?
Gotcha. Not easy to discern the difference. And so many people think it's all good, constructive criticism, but you're absolutely right. You need to.
Yeah, there's a group here in Las Vegas, Sin City Writers, which I love, but there's a new night starting up and everybody is so supportive and friendly and positive, and it's completely useless.
That's very
Too nice.
God love you, but even I know this sentence isn't right. So
yeah.
help a brother out here.
Now you 3 live all over this country, Las Vegas, Florida, and Desiree, you're right smack in the middle, aren't you? So for your next book, your next project, you are suddenly given a writer's grant, but the only thing you are allowed to spend it on is to go someplace else to write the book. Where do you want to travel to? Where is that ultimate writer's retreat for you?
Fine.
Get the juices flowing. Mary Ellen, you got someplace?
Someplace near the water. I would love to be either on the South Shore of Long Island or Sanibel Island in Florida.
Very nice. Very nice. Water is good.
Hear the surf and see the beach.
Desiree, what's going to inspire you?
I'm with her, except maybe the Keys. I actually alternate between either the beach or the mountains. I really love nature, as long as the mountains is in the middle of summer. I hate the cold.
And not in the middle of the winter.
No.
Yeah, I'm a mountain guy, so I'm with you, Desiree. Somewhere up in the mountains with a view, lots of hiking trails, but somehow magically on top of the mountain is fabulous internet access.
I was about to say.
You
That
do
would be a problem.
fabulous internet access to be able to get that next book done. That's for sure.
Mhm.
And one other question as I review over your books. Who would be your ideal reader? Mary Ellen, who should be buying your book? So we know who to buy this as a gift for. Who should I buy The Love Letter Ghost for?
Well, when I was writing it, I was inspired by Janet Ivanovich.
Okay.
Because her books were fun and fast reads. And I wanted to write a book that I would like to read. So I guess it could be just about anybody. And with some of the main characters being male and the Gramps character, everybody just loves him. I guess I have a female and a male audience.
Okay. So
About anybody who
Is
just
it
wants a fun read. They want to laugh. There's a couple of sad parts to it, but I wanted a fun book, and that's what I think anybody that wants to read something like that would enjoy this.
sounds good. Wayne, who should I be buying Johnny Lycan for?
I wish I knew the answer to that question because I can't. It fits in between genres.
Okay.
It's not horror-y enough for the horror fans, right? But at the same time, the average urban fantasy paranormal reader, like you asked if Desiree's werewolf and my werewolf would be friends, and the answer is no. Look at her werewolf.
I know.
They're like these incredibly hot people, and there is not a hair on that man's body, whereas Johnny is this 6 foot tall 200-pound guy who's like hairy. You know what I mean? He's your average schlub. I think if you like the kind of Jack Reacher, Spencer for Hire detective stories with a touch of scary stuff in it,
Okay.
that's probably the right answer. An inordinate number of my readers actually are female, which surprises me a little bit, but I also find it immensely gratifying.
Good to hear. And Desiree, who am I buying a copy of the Crescent Vendetta for, besides your father?
Just anyone that loves paranormal, wolf shifters. It's got suspense. It's got a little bit of everything thrown in, but it is mainly like obviously fantasy and paranormal.
Okay, and it's also got that hot guy on the cover. So anybody who just wants to have that on their nights.
For the record, Girl Wolf is not too shabby. Just saying.
I'll keep that in mind.
Right.
I promise I will keep that in mind when we're
And my book has historical aspects also, besides the paranormal.
Okay, well, this is great. I have a lot of gifts to be buying in the upcoming days, and I want to make sure that our viewers know where to go shopping. I can't thank the three of you enough for joining me here between the covers. And since I heard, I have it on record, you're all working on another book. So I insist you are going to join me again when that next book is ready. Thanks so much. Thanks
Do not invite me to a party. I just might show up. You really want to be careful with things like that stuff.
You got it anytime. And thanks for all the tips for our writers, because well, now we'll have authors galore joining us on this show, all due to you. So thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on Between the Covers. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're an author who would be interested in appearing on our show, or perhaps you're a member of a book club, we do host book clubs as well, please visit BetweenTheCoversTV.com. By the way, at BetweenTheCoversTV.com, you can watch past episodes in addition to learning more about our authors and guests. So sign up there if you would like to be a guest on the show yourself. And if you have some books that you would like to get written or published, visit redpenguinbooks.com. Thanks so much for joining us.